Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Loads of news in the CDL over the last 24 hours and basically none of it is good. Los Angeles Guerrillas, after having all the money in the world for the last few seasons, will go up for sale or just straight up be shut down at the end of the season. Remarkable story, and also the CDL confirming the Major 4 location to not exactly great applause. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. We're just going to dive in straight today. So, Los Angeles Guerrillas, we saw yesterday the guards, their kind of ownership group, had basically gutted their esports division. All the media, all the content, it's all gone. The question was, are they actually just going to leave esports entirely? Are they trying to do what 100 Thieves and others have done recently, scale back operations in certain areas where salaries and human resources are a bit bloated, and then try and still make it work in esports with a bit of a skeleton crew? That is kind of what they're going to do, but only for the time being, right? They're maintaining some of their esports teams. I think Valorant is going to stay for now, but I'm sure they'll take offers for that team and for their players. And the same story for their franchises with Los Angeles Guerrillas and the Los Angeles Gladiators, I believe is what their Overwatch League team is called. So they will only remain operational until a suitable buyer can be found. So they've got months to figure this one out. But obviously, it's an absolute shambles, right? This also includes their Overwatch team, and this comes less than 24 hours after laying off a large number of employees. So they intend to sell the spot imminently, and if they can't sell it by, well, over the coming months, it will just shut down at the end of the season, and that spot will go elsewhere. So, look, it's maybe what we expected to happen as a result of what we saw yesterday. But mad, really, the LAG have been the money team for several years at this point, and in fairness, they've barely made anything of that money. They've made some terrible decisions over the years, giving Eggs the absolute supermax in year one. The team they built there, the team they built in Cold War was also a terrible idea, giving Arcitys this crazy deal when they maybe could have kept Slasher, Spart on a 3-year deal. Like, many questionable things they've done over the last few years. They did win an event last year at Major 2, but they've obviously burned through a lot of money, that franchise. Now, I expected, right, look, if you're a franchise buying into this league, I feel like you had to realize this was not a 3-year return. This is not a 5-year return. This was a decade plus long return. Now, I'm sure Bobby Kotick's PowerPoint presentations painted it in a rather different way, and we'll see some examples of that here in a second. But yeah, I'm just a bit surprised that we're, 4 years into this league? And in fairness, right, when this league formed, how many of us in the community said, oh, give it 5 years and see if the league's still around, right? So we're kind of getting to 5 years in, and we're starting to get things like this occurring. Now, there are interested parties, I imagine, for a CDL spot, but the problem is that Activision have done, they haven't really tried to grow the league massively. They've made some very questionable decisions, especially with the game and the competitive side and all these type of things that haven't really led to the league growing at all. The YouTube deal, of course, which they want to bring back for some reason, is another frustrating point. In addition to charging the 25 million buy-in fee, like that's a crazy amount of money for a CDL spot, especially seems that way nowadays. So it just makes it really tricky for other organizations that might be interested and have the money to buy in, because it's a massive commitment of capital. And Marky B confirms here, the coach of the team, can't put into words how devastated I am. I moved to LAG because of the organization, the people behind the scenes. It's only been there a few months, right? He left Toronto to go to this team, and that's all gone now. So, as he says, we're going to put everything we can into the rest of the season, not for the suits, but for everybody else. Even Arcitys' comment, of course, the player that was, the big deal on this team. This year's a movie. Everything has flipped for me, just trying to be positive on winning and stay positive. I'll focus on winning and stay positive. So, yeah, tough for Aussies, right? Having left, the FaZe team and where that was, not exactly left, but got kicked and then put up by LAG, and, obviously made the choice to go here because the big salary, the money, and all this type of stuff that's now dried up. And he even confirms in the replies here that he did want to go to OpTic. Bro, respectfully, I couldn't. I was trying to go to OpTic. I shouldn't say this, but screw it. I don't own the org, I don't control anything, but yeah, obviously difficult situation for Arcitys, and confirming here that he wanted to go to OpTic and still would in an ideal world. And this is some of the discussion here in terms of, will they easily find a buyer? Crone is talking about how it's just a massive money pit, which is obviously fair enough. And I'm not exactly sure what Los Angeles Guerrillas will do here, just because they won't have paid the full 25 million to Activision yet, right? I don't know how much they'll have paid, maybe 7, maybe 8, maybe 10, I don't know. It's meant to be over a few years, and Activision delayed the payments because of the pandemic and stuff. But, will an organization come through and say, hey, we'll pay the remaining 15 million and you guys can just go about your way and basically just get that liability off their books? I don't know. They've got plenty of months to find a new buyer. And the thing is, right, with esports right now is that you've got organizations like TSM, organizations like Cloud9 that would have been interested in the CDL and probably would have bought in at a different time. And both of those organizations are rapidly losing money. Their crypto sponsors are drying up, all this stuff. So a lot of the organizations that would be interested in endemic esports teams that have been in COD in the past are probably no longer viable. So it becomes really tricky to actually find a valid partner here. And even even Prez Breyer says in replies to my tweet, which I thought was incredible, that a few of these owners in the Overwatch League and the CDL only involved because of Bobby Kotick and his relationships with those billionaire sports owners and got them to buy it on a ridiculous plan. So imagine if you're Bobby Kotick and you're friends with these billionaire sports guys, that you're like, oh yeah, get into the CDL Overwatch League, a great investment, 25 million, absolute bargain, and you just rinsed all these teams for 300 million, and now the league's collapsing, it seems, at least from the outside.
That number is not feasible. Like a $25 million buy-in is not appropriate for the size of our league. And now, if they're talking going back to YouTube, it's even less of a reason to pay that money.
$25 million. I mean,
so I'm sure.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to finish what I was saying by saying, I'm sure that there's an organization out there that would love to be in the Call of Duty League for a more appropriate price. I mean,
yes.
If it's something reasonable, we can see a lot of, like, there are plenty of cool esports organizations and sports owners that would probably love to be in the Call of Duty League, but not for a $25 million price tag.
People are saying, Scump, you got that? Dude, I would cut both of my balls off before that happened. I mean, $25 million? What do you guys think I am, Bezos? Jesus.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. All right, keep reading. Or you could add whatever you're going to say. Sorry.
I mean, I'm just talking about cutting my balls off. All right, here we go.
So as Scump and Method say right there about, 25 mil, it's a lot of money. Is there anyone actually going to pay that amount? Because last year, or maybe it was a season before, when Boston were coming through, and we didn't know if Boston were going to arrive or not, it was like, are we going to have 11 teams? Is there going to be another owner for the 12th franchise? We did get there eventually. There might be another owner like that that can take Los Angeles Guerrillas, move it to a different city, and, hopefully that's what happens here. Even, maybe call up Lando Norris, right, if he wants Quadrant to become a CDL team. I don't know, but still, we'll see how it goes. And for all the trash that I've thrown at times Paris Legion's way, at least they're remaining, like as even Clay says here, closest org to profitability in the CDL most likely. Vegas Legion, Florida, they don't like to spend money, but at least they're actually remaining operational. And even as Clay says, it's pretty typical that the mind of the business guys behind this, because a lot of their philosophies the owner has, he actually kind of agrees with. But, I do think Paris Legion, maybe if they want to actually make this sustainable, you've got to look at the merchandising, the sponsorships, the other side of the businesses. But fair enough, they lasted longer than the Los Angeles Guerrillas, which I wouldn't have necessarily expected. But the future there is certainly very interesting. There was also this update on the Toronto Ultra side with their CEO of Overactive Media, Chris Overholt, stepping down to pursue another opportunity. Adam Adamu will step up and kind of be the interim CEO for now. But I don't know if this is anything massive really. It might just be he got a better opportunity elsewhere, but just maybe another indication that esports isn't exactly in the best spot right now. Another indication of that is this, what the CDL have done with Major 4. I knew this for some time, this is going to be happening. It's not a massive surprise, I think, to the community, but it's still a big frustration. So in Columbus, Ohio, that's where Major 4 will be held. It was meant to be in New York. They couldn't do it for whatever reason. So it's now going to be in Columbus, Ohio with no fans. Thankfully, it's still on LAN. I remember a while ago they were discussing the possibility of doing it online, which had been an absolute disaster. So it's getting done on LAN at least, but there's no fans here. The frustrating thing is, I feel like the venue, I don't know if this venue can really have fans in, but they probably could get some audience there in attendance, but they're not going to. The frustrating thing, I think, for me, I know that Daniel Side tweeted about this and how they were, okay, keeping it on LAN was paramount, and we'd love to have a crowd. And in fairness, right, getting a venue organized to make this work in a relatively short-term basis with a crowd, with all the preparation, difficult to achieve. I can understand why they've done this, but I can also understand why they've done this from a purely money-saving perspective. And it's frustrating that Activision got all this money in from the franchise league, but saving money still seems to be an absolute top priority for them, because at the end of the day, especially with what Dens is saying here, we'll see in a second, it seems to me that maybe the CDL did ask, hey, CDL teams, do you want to host this? And the teams are like, no, it's a little bit short-term basis for us to actually make that work. So the CDL decided, all right, you know what, let's just cut cost and have it in Columbus, Ohio at one of the Esports Engine, Belong Arena's studios or whatever, do it with no crowd, and that's how it's going to be. Whereas there were clearly other and better options. Even Dens says, I thought it was quite a tweet here from Dens over at the Boston Breach side, we would have loved to host this at the Helix Esports in Foxborough. So Helix Esports Foxborough, I believe last year they held a Challengers event there. It's about an hour outside of Boston, but it's a cool venue right next to the stadium of the team, is that whatever the Boston team is. The stadium they've got, it's right next to that, I believe, in Foxborough. The Patriots, I think, and it's a pretty good venue, right? They've got main stage, they've got potential live audience, fan access, food and drinks, close hotels. Obviously, they just hosted Major 2. It's an hour out of the center. They could have done it. Would have been a win-win for everyone. Either Boston, would just straight up not ask. As he says, wish we had the opportunity presented our way. So for all the discussions from the CDL, oh yeah, they tried. They were considering their options. You know, reading this, it just seems like from day one they were like, yeah, let's just cut costs, no bother with fans. And I mean, yeah, it's just another frustrating decision really in the CDL landscape. Another quick update on what Activision are up to is that the current rumor is that indeed this year's game will fall under Modern Warfare. So this year's game is probably not going to be a game. They're gassing it up as a full premium release, probably just because they're going to try and sell a DLC for $70, which is honestly pretty fair play for Activision. But the report is that's going on now is that there's never going to be anything for now really that isn't a Modern Warfare or a Black Ops. Those are kind of going to be the two main franchises, and that's how it's going to be. So whatever Sledgehammer are working on for this year is probably an extension of Modern Warfare 2, and they're going to try and flog us it for $70. So I think that's the present rumor on that side. But let's talk about the matches that are going on today. Also, the process, right? I mean, the last few weeks obviously have been insane. Scump retiring, Huke is in, Shotzzy, Dashy, all the Dashy drama. Ghosty now, of course, there, passing the torch. This process episode goes live tonight. I'm sure it's going to be a banger. Don't exactly know why they make it live, basically while the CDL matches are going on, but I guess it is what it is. They also play tonight as well, so I'm guessing they're going to make sure that it doesn't align. Well, maybe the process finishes, their matchup begins, something like that. One funny thing as well to mention before we talk about the matches today, so we put this up on Breaking Void last night. We discussed this and like, okay, which of the 4 pros we should put up here to make this maximally controversial? And I thought Slasher was always going to be a good one. Dashy here, Sib and Scrappy. And I thought it was a pretty interesting question, right? If you've got to start 2 ARs in your team. Obviously, Slasher and Dashy tried to work together on the OGLA team. That didn't really work. I think it also depends who your SMGs are, right? If you've got aBeZy and Simp, if you've got incredible SMGs, you probably don't need to go like pure slaying on your AR side, and you can go for a Slasher or more veteran leadership or whatever. But, you know, people weren't really thinking like that in the comments below. And I thought it was pretty funny actually from Scrappy here. So Scrappy replies and says, yo, I get it, my neck is long. But he obviously wasn't so... I didn't even notice this at first when I saw these commies images that Lion Man's made. But in fairness, Scrappy's neck is pretty long on this image. And then the reply to Scrappy was this one, how about now, with the ultra giraffe neck. So thought it was pretty funny. I think he unfollowed us on Twitter for this, but, you know, whatever, I guess it was worth it. Let's talk about the games then. So this is the entirety of the weekends. Most teams, as always, play 2 matches. OpTic play 2 times. They play tonight and they play on Sunday. Probably their easier week of the 2 because next week OpTic play New York and FaZe. That's far from easy. Today they play a Toronto team that's kind of been floundering a bit lately. A very questionable decision from Toronto to get rid of Standy, bring Hicksy into the team, and they play Rokkr that's also not looking so good on Sunday. So should be an achievable week for OpTic, but many other great games. Some of these should be kind of a walk in the park. We're going to see Los Angeles Guerrillas in action today as well. But some very interesting matches here. I'm especially looking forward to Surge versus Los Angeles Thieves tomorrow. And yeah, there's some other good games throughout the weekend as well. But these are the specific ones we want to focus in on tonight. FaZe versus the London Royal Ravens. I feel like this is one of the series where FaZe will just be testing out their map pool and stuff like this. They'll be throwing in some wacky maps in here to try and make sure they understand things better. But they are 1-1. They do kind of need to win this series anyway. Ravens put up a decent fight when they played Breach last week, went to a game 5. So I don't know what's going to happen here, but I'm expecting FaZe to win. I'll give them a 3-1. I think Ravens will take a map somewhere. And then Ultra versus OpTic. I'm going to favor OpTic here, maybe in a game 5. Tough to say though, because Ultra, yes, they had their victory last week when Hicksy came into the team, but wasn't super impressed with it. And they required both of their ARs to dominate to win that series, right? I'm not sure the SMGs have the firepower that's maybe necessary on this level. And they play an OpTic team that's probably only getting better reps with Ghosty into the lineup. So not sure. I think that OpTic's decision making is still going to be a little bit questionable as far as I'm concerned. So I'll take them. I think in a game 5, I still do trust OpTic's search and destroy a fair bit right now, which is a positive sign for them. And then Breach versus LA Guerrillas. So Breach are already 2-0, right? And they now play an LAG team to potentially go 3-0. A series I do believe they'll probably win with the firepower they have. And also Guerrillas, I think they've won 2 of their last 10 hard points. It's not looking good on that front, but Boston are looking probably rather good in that mode. So I'll take FaZe, OpTic and Breach. Intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.